Welcome, everyone, to AI Unscripted. The only thing in the world that now exists in people's mind is AI, but AI is an 80-year-old overnight success stories, and digital twins have been part of that success story for decades, but not oft spoken about. Today, John Lindsay, president of Insight, an AI expert and digital twin experts, will be talking to me about what digital twins are, what are simulations, and examples of where they can be used. John, welcome, sir. How are you today?
I am fantastic, given the fact that it is now 4:51 in the fine country of America. I'm up early to join you because this is important stuff, my friend. How you doing?
Yeah, really good. Let's just say it's not 4:50 in the morning or anywhere near that. Let's say I've had about 8 coffees already. Long may that continue. Good luck with your day. And if you fall asleep during this, don't worry, we'll just keep it going anyway. So, John, look, everybody talks about AI and Gen AI, but you and the team have been in the industry for ages, looking at digital twins and simulations. Look, for those who are not au fait with digital twins and simulations, what are they? What's the origins?
Well, first of all, you're right. I love the way you pointed out that it's an overnight sensation because again, most of the people are thinking about AI today are just hearing about it like it's OpenAI is the first company that ever did anything with it 2 years ago, right? So it's been a rebirth and a regen for companies like us because we used to have to chase people around the halls to tell them why they needed some of the technology we develop, and now they're chasing us. So it's a complete paradigm shift. And so everyone's definition, I think, of digital twins in particular is slightly unique. Our definition is really a little open-ended. It is really from a core standpoint, the majority of simulations and digital twins we've built have been representations of assets that exist in real life, right? So why do you need a digital twin? Well, if you're a doctor, you don't want to operate on the real patient, right, and kill them first. You want the digital twin to work with first, so you can go through those simulations, train, get acclimated, and then work on the patient, right? And it's the same way in the heavy asset world, right? Think about all the things that run. Our company's headquartered in Texas, so oil and gas, right? Cowboy hats and big open fields and oiling. So a lot of the firms that we service are heavy industry firms, and what do they have out there running and refining and producing all these specialty chemicals and oil and gas that we burn up in our car, fossil fuels? They're running pumps and turbines and compressors that run 24/7, and they make millions of dollars for these people every single day. And when those things go down, they lose a lot of money. And so you do not want engineers and maintenance people tinkering with the actual assets. So what do? We build a digital replica of those pumps, those turbines, those compressors. And then what do? We allow those engineers and maintenance workers who are ultimately servicing and running those assets to make the tweaks to the digital twin and then run the simulation millions of times to find out what the adequate temperature, pressure, flow is for the current conditions, right? There may be wind one particular day that creates dust, which creates friction, which means we have to slow those things down. Well, we want to know, okay, let's run that asset and find out what the impact of some of these external conditions are going to be on that particular asset. And then once we're comfortable with the simulation, after we've run it a couple million times, we know what we've perceived the outcome to be, then and only then do we make the changes to the real asset. So it gives us the ability to make mistakes in the digital world that we will not make in the physical world.
Oh, I
And
really like that. That's the data insight or the management insight you need to put with great experts. But, John, I sort of say this here. Everyone expects to a degree AI, predictive maintenance, whatever else, to be in the industrial world. But this is a lot more use and application, for example, in the airlines or retails or mergers and acquisition world as well. Give us some examples of those where digital twins or simulations work there, because I think people will be surprised.
yeah, it is. I think you're absolutely right. I've been again. So, our initial remedial definition really kind of focuses on the asset because people can get their head around that. They go, yeah, I kind of get it. And if you watch that old movie, I think it was Apollo 13 or Apollo 11, and, the spaceship's up there and they're trying to figure out how in the world they're going to fix it. Well, what do? They assemble a replica down there on the ground. They make all the changes and they call up to them and they say, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. And you're going to make it back alive. Pretty important stuff, right? So same concept brought down to other areas. So let's talk about retail for a second. What are retail stores? We've done one for Target, for instance. What does Target want to know? Target wants to know how they can keep their merchandise on their shelves, accessible to you and, our wives or whomever is going to be out there doing that shopping, buying those things, right? Well, they need it right there, and they want to know several things. They want to know the traffic patterns. What is the traffic pattern? What's the best flow of the best days that they've had, during the Christmas season, for instance? You've got a retail store that's got a physical limitation of walls, right? Well, how do we make sure that we set up the material that we're selling and all that fantastic retail gear that people want to buy, towels and toiletries and TVs and all those things? We want to make sure that we know the flow of the pattern of customers so they can get as many in there as fast as they can to spend as much money as they can to make sure the presentation is right. So we've replicated Target's entire retail strategy around particular stores to ensure that the flow produces the amount of results that they want, right? So they want to see a certain revenue number every single day. Well, that store has its limitations. So how do we push the store's limitations to make sure we get the people in front of the right goods at the right time so they spend the money and then get them out of the store so we can get more people in there fast? And so we can run those simulations a million times and tell you that, hey, if you move the toiletries to the left and move them up front, people are going to get in, get out, and get those quick. Those are fast sales. You want to get those in and out quickly. Move that to the front. The TVs, people are going to spend a little more time lingering on. Get those at a particular spot where you can get those in now. So there's a whole flow as to what they want to see where we can build simulations around it. Airlines, one of the airlines that we did, I can't mention the name, but they wanted to find out their refueling strategy. They're burning a lot of gas. Well, at the time they weren't really thinking. They were allowing the pilots to determine where they would stop and refuel. And they realized, wow, they're losing a lot of money based on what those decisions are from a human. Is there a better way to do this? Can we start mapping the flights and make sure that they land in a particular place, not only for refueling, but let's tie maintenance to that too. So when do they need to be maintained? When do they stop for fuel? What do those patterns look like? And gosh, if we can do that across thousands of jets for their airline in one day, we can absolutely save them millions and millions of dollars every single day if we just make sure that they follow the pattern that we put out there for them. Plus, we know the maintenance schedule is going to be better as well, because remember, what runs airplanes? A big turbine that looks just like the same turbine we build digital twins for in the plant that move oil and gas. And so those assets can talk to the ground and say, hey, you know what? I'm coming up on a scheduled maintenance. I need a little bit of assistance. What city am I near? What would be the best landing point that has fuel, cheap fuel, right? Because the fuel doesn't cost the same depending on where you land, right? So you might want to make sure that in Philly, where maybe this airline owns some refinery assets, that landing there is significantly cheaper. And if we can refill them there, it's a better play to move their planes there. So that's another opportunity. And here's an interesting one people don't really think about. We call these management flight simulators, but this kind of goes back to gaming theory, Kieran. It's, again, all this stems from gaming. So if you think, it's funny because I would tell my wife when our kids are playing games and she says, all they do is play video games. I said, let them do it, because you have no idea. A lot of the reasons that you're eating food on your table is because of the engine that drives those gaming theory. And that drives a lot of this industry. And it has been like that for us for a long, long time. So we built something that we refer to as management flight simulators. And what is it? It's a digital twin of an actual entity, an entire company, right? Their supply chain, their P&L, their sales. And we take all their information and we load that up into our digital twin. And then we essentially take an MBA student who you think is really, really bright, that you want to show the whole business to, and you want to start grooming them so they can run that company. And you sit them in front of that company and say, here you go. What are we sitting at? We're almost at June 1st. On June 1st, you're going to take the reins of this organization. We want you to make the decisions for 30 days, and let's see how you've done, right? Let's check the sales. Let's check the P&L. Have you collected your money? Are revenues up or revenues down? What did we do? What did we not do? What did we do right? What did we do wrong? They're getting exposure to the entire organization without ever screwing anything up, right? There's no risk whatsoever. And so it's an amazing opportunity. And then what happens? It's learning. You're learning. The whole thing is learning. So it's not just the MBA student that learns out of these exercises. What we've learned is when you model an entire organization for people, everybody learns. When people have modeled our organizations, we look at ourselves as a leadership team going back through it and go, wow, we didn't ever think of that. What were we thinking, right? So everybody learns when you go through an exercise like that. And people don't traditionally think of that as a digital twin because it's not physical, right? This is digital and digital. But at the end of the day, you're allowing people to do things and make mistakes in a world that really has no consequence whatsoever. What a fantastic thing, right? In my world, in your world, the decisions we make every day, right? They could be bad decisions and they could have impacts. This is a beautiful thing. And this is, I think, where it ties to the gaming theory. You can play the game over and over and over and over again to no consequence, right? Except maybe your score and your friends might laugh at you. So it's the same world. You can go into that world for industry where, and think about heavy industry, Kieran. I mean, look, what we do is dirty and smelly and dangerous, and people can get hurt, right? And what is our goal for our people that, thousands of people go out into the field every single day. And if something catastrophic happens at that site, people could not go home to their families. So it's really, really, this is really, really serious stuff. And so, performing those changes on that digital asset, if you blow it up, just like a flight simulator pilot, if he crashes it, there's no consequence, right? He learns, he goes back, he gets better, he gets better, he gets better. This is the same concept. It gives the ability for people to come into an environment where there could be significant consequences if you do it wrong. And they don't suffer those consequences, and they get better and better and better. Their confidence grows. They understand. And then when the time comes, they're ready to move them into the field and do it in real time. It's amazing. And we've been doing this. I think you said something earlier where, AI has kind of been around for 80 years. I mean, we find it funny. I mean, look, I'm an old guy. Look at me. I mean, goodness, I'll be 60 in days. We've been doing this a long, long time. And so to hear people so excited about technology today, and so it's a rejuvenating feeling in our industry where you feel it too. We're, the debutantes of the ball now, as opposed to being just the nerdy old guys that would sit around and build stuff that people thought, what in the world are we doing this for, right? No one was really interested in it at all. Add Gen AI into this and give people the ability to be able to talk to their iPhone, and all of a sudden everybody wants to have conversations about AI and machine learning and all the things that we do. So it's an amazing time for people like you and I.
Yeah, I will avoid the "we told you so," but that's fascinating because, again, I'm just looking there and thinking, of all the applications. So MBA students, yes, you don't want to let them loose too soon, but imagine that in their education environment, they simulate particular businesses, they work in groups, they work out whether they up or down the P&L, work out whether their environmental impact is good, bad, or ugly. I love what you're saying there around, again, go back to heavy industrial or whatever else. You don't want people injured or hurt, for them from a personal point of view, from the business, from a cost and labor and keeping going point of view. Because again, the businesses that we have in the world, they pay wages, they pay dividends, they help shares, everything else. The uses are phenomenal. Bring us a little bit more, John, a little bit into some more, just to give people a little bit more of a flavor. So for example, you can use digital twins in jury selection.
Yeah, I mean, one of the most interesting things that we're working on right now, and it is clearly not in production yet, and I don't really know. Maybe there may be somebody doing this, and it's funny because if you go back to watch an old television show called Bull, I forget the guy who plays it. You probably recognize him, but it was 20 some years ago where they would go pick these jurors that would be essentially a physical twin of the juror characteristics that they're looking for. And they would monitor the biorhythms of that person sitting in the courtroom and then assume that those same kinds of decisions are going to be made by the real juror. Well, obviously we've gotten a lot more sophisticated now, right? Because obviously, our lives back then, nobody really had a big digital profile that you could go find out a lot about a human being and then come back and put it into the algorithm, let the machine learning crank for a while and say, okay, gosh, we found John Lindsay online. You probably won't find, you'll find me out there singing stupid songs, and you'll probably think, wow, what an idiot. We're not picking that guy for a jury anyway, so he's probably not a candidate, right? We don't want that guy. But everybody else, in a case where, and I'll use safety as an example, in a case where, there's somebody's been injured, you're looking for the lawyer that is going to ultimately try that case is looking for certain characteristics in his jury. And you'll have a very small window of time to find out what kind of people you really want to look for to be able to get the outcome, the litigation outcome that you're looking for. So what can we do about that with a digital twin? Where does a digital twin fit into this? Well, it fits in several ways. Number one, the information on people is publicly available now. So we can get a lot of that information very, very quickly, download it into that particular individual. And what do we build? We build a personal profile. We build characteristics, personality, everything from, how do they vote? How do they act? What do they do? What do they drive? Where do they live? Right? All those things factor into probably the personality. We don't know 100%, but probably the personality that you're going to, in the characteristics that you're going to have. So we know that about one person. Well, what happens when you add in the group dynamic, right? Now we've brought in the characteristics of 15 to 20 to 100, however many people that we could potentially be looking. In some states, Kieran, here, and I don't know if this is true everywhere, but in some states, we'll get access to jury pools early. So we can do a lot of this crunching early on. In some cases, it's a very, very small window and you got to do it really, really fast. So obviously technology helps us get there faster. So if you pulled together the 15, 20, 30, 100 people that you're trying to look at, now we can say, okay, look, this person by themselves probably is going to, to feel a particular way about this kind of case based on what we know about them. But let's run a simulation and put them into a group dynamic with people that first either share those characteristics or maybe only partially share those characteristics or don't share any of those characteristics at all, because that could be the jury profile that we're ultimately dealing with here. And then let's run a simulation a million times over and over and over again and see what type of outcome that we would think. What's the sentiment, if you will? What's the personality of that overarching jury? So, but then the magic really happens. It's okay, well, so where is this being tried? This is being tried in a particular state. Well, what is that state? In our case, it would be, is it red or blue? Is it Democrat? Is it Republican? Is it impoverished? Is it not impoverished? Right? What are the demographics of the area that you're going to be trying that case in? And then who's going to preside over it? What are the potential that these judges are the judges that are going to preside over that trial? And what's their case history in a particular case like this? And what kind of jury helped them select that particular outcome? How did they come to that litigation outcome? Did it work? Did it not work? And so at the end of the day, what are we going to do? We're going to take all this information that would take, weeks and months for somebody to manually prepare. And that's even if you could do it. And then we're going to run that thing millions of times. And we're going to give somebody a probability that, hey, we can't 100% guarantee anything ever, but we can give you a pretty good feel that if you get this type of jury profile in this location with a particular judge that feels this particular way, 89.2% of the time, here's the way they're going to vote. This is the way I would build my argument and structure my case if you want to win that case. And that, it's just, we're in the process of working on this now. And I've been doing this for, almost 2 decades. I'm blown away. It's amazing to me to see some of this stuff. I get goosebumps looking at it going, holy cow. The idea that we can do some of these things. And, I think the other piece that's really exciting here now, and you and I can talk a little bit about this, is so bring in today's, what people consider to be today's AI, Gen AI, you can talk to me, I can talk to you, it can talk to us, it can have a conversation, because in the old days when we were building a lot of the digital twins we build, it would take a propeller head like us to be able to have the dialogue with you. Couldn't walk up to your machine and just go, hey, AI, tell me everything I ever wanted to know about Kieran, and what did he do yesterday, and all the things that we can ask it now in English, right? And then a 14-year-old kid can do it. It wasn't like that. We had to put in code to be able to talk to it digitally, and you had to have some sort of engineering or data systems background or be one of our MIT mathematicians to be able to have a dialogue with it, to feed it the information. Now, none of that's required, right? So now everybody gets to participate in this thing and be part of how they structure this. So I think it's opened the floodgates, if you will, to all the people now that go, wow, not only does it exist and I know about it, but it's a game that I can play in, as opposed to something that I could never really have the skill set to be acclimated to really have any input on or impact to. Now you have people, building little GPTs all over the place to, how do you better do laundry? How do I do my grocery list? So everybody's in the game now. Everybody became a programmer overnight, which is kind of scary, isn't it? I mean, you're in this space, right? I mean, there was a kind of a barrier. There was in business, right? We'd have that barrier to entry thing, right? Meaning that, somebody couldn't just overnight jump in and take over our business and compete with us. Now, all of a sudden, you're looking at this going, holy cow, these people can probably write better code than I ever could in my entire life. And all they have to do is tell it what they want. It's like they're ordering food at a restaurant. It's unbelievable.
I don't think that was a high bar when it came to me as a coder, John, to be honest.
But
no, I think
me either. Yeah, it doesn't take much to be better than me. I agree.
But look, I hate the phrase, IT's been democratized, but it really doesn't describe this. This is cheap as chips, and now everybody can take part. That's the bit that I adore, and it's a bit that I've been trying to sell and tell people for decades. IT has had its barriers. Data science has its barriers. 10, 15 years ago, when I was running a team of data scientists, they were costing $1 million a year. And back in the day, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now I can do the same darn thing for $20, and it's just down to imagination and appetite as to what you can do. Because again, when I'm thinking digital twins, I'm looking at, obviously heavy industry. The legal side of things is a fantastic one. The retail one we know about. The simulating your business and training students or MBA students or whatever, how to do particular things to work out the consequences and the impact. Looking at mergers and acquisitions, do we need one factory? What's the overlap in supply chains? How the decisions you make will likely turn out. And this is the bit that I've been banging on about again for years, John, and called decision insight. How do we put great individuals together? And it is about great individuals who are highly trained, highly skilled, highly developed. How do we put them with great technology to allow them to make even better decisions? And if we go back to the original example you mentioned about the airline pilots, there isn't a pilot and a chance in hell that I want any pilot going up in a plane that's using live passengers as their test or learning environment. But we stick them in, we simulate, we protect people every day from all sorts of adventures, and we make pilots continually do that training. It's interesting. We don't do the same thing as often with doctors. We don't do the same thing with software engineers. And if you look at some of the applications that we're now using in some of the social networks and whatever else, it's almost as if they have so much power on our lives that it's unreal. And I'm a tremendous advocate for actual software engineers being controlled, small c, in the same way that our lawyers are, in the same way that our airline pilots are. And I would love to see more of this simulation to help them as well make better decisions. Nobody sets out to make a bad decision, but when you look at the millions and billions and the lives that are impacted every day, why aren't we using this technology in every way we possibly could? But John, you and I could talk about this all day, as you and I usually will and do. But look, for everyone who's listening in today, I hope you've got a little bit more of a flavor about what digital twins and simulations are. With 3 billion gamers in the world, I think we've a lot more people who are going to come through and learn this technology. It's hugely impactful. It's not Gen AI is the only AI in the world. This has been around for decades, as John mentioned. There's more and exciting things to come. And if you want to learn more about digital twins and simulations and all the possible business, industrial, supply chain, legal, and every other aspect of it, follow myself and John on LinkedIn, because we put out stories all of the time on what's hot and what's not hot in the technology sector. John, thank you so much indeed. I wish you a wonderful day. Now you can go back to bed and sleep for a couple of hours and get on with your the rest of the happy weekend.
Hey, I don't get up for just anybody at 4:30 in the morning, my friend. So it's all good. Now, it was fantastic delving into this. I mean, we could do this, as you said, for hours. So let's just call this part 1 to be continued, right?
I think we'll want to call it part 1 to be continued. And we'll record it as well, because our hours of conversation should be
there you go.
some tomb or other. Alrighty, my friend, have a wonderful day.
Over and out.